Hello everybody and welcome back to Elite Dangerous with Wadres, and for today's video I'm actually stepping away from what I have been doing in Elite Dangerous for the last couple of weeks actually, and I'm moving on to something a little bit different briefly. After watching one of the Mighty Jingles' most recent Elite Dangerous videos, where he was going after Guardian blueprint fragments to be able to get a hold of a Guardian frameshift drive booster, and basically watching him fail at the task miserably, both in the original video and his follow-up video, where he discovered that he was actually at the wrong Guardian site, I decided I would try the entire process myself. Now, I had also been paying a little bit of attention to the comments, and one of the things that was recommended first and foremost was by having a ship with top-mounted point defense units parked as close to the Guardian structure as possible to defend against Guardian Sentinel missiles. And, well, I decided to go for the gusto, and I'm doing this in my Federal Corvette, which I'm beginning to understand why they actually recommend a small to medium ship for this whole endeavor. Primarily because, well, the Corvette is a very large ship, and as you're going to see as I go through all of this, I'm going to run into quite a bit of trouble actually finding a landing spot. But before that, I actually run into another minor issue, because several of my landing controls are not quite the same as my general flight controls. They are... I don't know how or why, but they ended up on just a completely different setting than my regular flight controls. So some of what you're seeing, I'm actually trying to thrust either to the left or the right, and what's actually going on is that my ship is yawing to the left or the right. So that's one of the reasons why you're actually going to be seeing the menus a couple of times in at least the earlier stages of this video, because I'm trying to figure out why my controls aren't working right. Yeah. And on top of that, I'm trying to do all of that and still trying to figure out where I can land my ship, where it's actually close enough to the Guardian site to provide covering fire for my SRV while I am on the ground. Because the nice thing is that even though the ship is landed and the commander is not present, the automated defenses like the point defense turrets will still be active and helping. But again, you have to be... you still have to actually be able to land the ship. And that is, again, the biggest issue that I ran into here with my Corvette, is just finding a decent landing spot that is close to the site, or maybe even marginally within the boundaries of the site. And it's gonna take me a little bit to actually succeed at that. Now, I do wish to warn all of my viewers, if there are any of you who are prone to epileptic outbursts, I am going to be spending a fair chunk of this video at 400 times speed, or not 400, 4 times speed, and especially once I get into the SRV, that's going... I imagine that could potentially be problematic, though I am not entirely sure. I would really just put it out there as a potential warning just in case, then be responsible for any harm coming to anybody. So just kind of please have that in the back of your minds as you move forward, and just, I guess, bear with me to some degree. And if it has the potential to cause you problems, and you are epileptic and know that it can, please back out right now. So anyway, I eventually do get my Corvette into a position where it is nice and landed, and I'm finally able to actually drop and start engaging in activities with my SRV. Now, this is not the first Guardian site that I had actually been to, but this is the one where I, for the most part, actually had my, I guess I could say my overall process figured out. I had ironed out a number of my controls and everything too, because I haven't actually played with an SRV in a while, and none of my SRV commands were actually mapped. So I actually had to spend a little bit of time on my first run really messing around more with my controls than I would have liked actually showing. It was very, very tedious. So this is actually the second run, second SRV in use, and I mean, it works out relatively well overall. And of course, going after the first little, going after the first artifact that I wanted to pick up here, I've already got a sentinel shooting at me. Now, fortunately, like the Mighty Jingles, I did not panic. And I do spend a rather inordinate amount of time actually trying to figure out, trying to remember how I had my turret activation actually programmed. Fortunately, I am in a position where my ship is covering me, so those missiles aren't doing much of anything, but it does still fire off these little plasma or laser bursts, whatever the hell they are, and that does have an effect on my shields while I'm trying to get my turret figured out. Now, ultimately, I do figure out, I believe, that I'm actually too close to my ship to actually deploy my turret, and I have to get a fair distance out. And that's why it's not working. There we go. Now it's working. Now I can pop the turret and get this thing taken care of. And it actually helps to be in combat mode instead of analysis mode. Come on, figure it out. Come on. There we go. Okay, now I can start shooting. But yeah, unfortunately it took me an inordinate amount of time to figure that out. However, I was perfectly-ish safe. And again, with my ship providing covering fire, it really made short work of that sentinel. Now, again, I'll admit I went for this purely for gusto to a point using my Federal Corvette. I could have used my Asp Explorer, I could have used my Cutter, those are the only three ships I have. I just really felt like pulling out my Corvette, and the only downside really to that was, one, actually finding a landing point, and also having the jump range, I suppose, to actually get there quickly. And here starts the exceptionally long span of 4 times speed, so again, please just bear with me, or even better yet, just kind of put the video down and listen, or whatever, and you know what, that's fine by me. I understand that it could potentially maybe cause problems for some viewers. I don't know for sure, but I'd rather, again, just kind of be wary of that in the first place. Because one of the things that I'm actually going to be doing is a lot of running back and forth before I actually get into the meat of this video and actually start doing what I was actually here for. I actually spent a large amount of time running around and just collecting engineering materials for Guardian stuff, and basically things that I needed to be able to have in hand to unlock the Guardian FSD booster. So that meant running around collecting artifacts, collecting materials, and shooting down just about any sentinel that I came across. And trying to collect some of these things is a lot of work because they actually are nested into little rock clusters, which you actually have to jump up on top of, and then with the right sort of timing, pop your cargo scoop and hope that you pick it up. And then you have to get back off the rock clusters. In other cases, you're just shooting at little panels on various structures that will pop away and give you the engineering materials. In fact, at this point, what I was looking for primarily was Guardian technology components, because I basically already had what I needed in other regards. So really just kind of trying to take as little time to build up things as possible, and in the meantime get a little bit of experience in handling the Guardian Sentinels. Now, something that probably would have helped me overall in this endeavor would have been if this planet had actually been on the day side of the planet. Unfortunately, that did not work out in my favor, but it would have at least helped me in figuring out the overall layout of the facility. Or I could have just tried to remember it from the air, but I obviously did not. So that is something that is going to cause me a little bit of consternation, though not too much, when it actually gets down to activating the site properly to get the materials that I was here for. And that's actually one of the things that I need right there, is a ancient relic piece. But unfortunately, I fired at it too early, and fortunately I was still able to get it loose, but it was a little bit of a nuisance trying to get it out of there. But I also take it back to my ship and deposit it in my cargo storage, because I know that I'm going to be coming across at least 2 more over the course of the exploration of this facility, and I only really need 1 to do what I need to do. Lots and lots and lots of running around getting these materials and shooting down sentinels, and also scanning some of the random obelisks that are around the site as well, getting some of the encoded data that would also be needed at some point or other if I decide to go after any other blueprints beyond the FSD booster. Now, I suppose in this regard I should probably explain that the FSD, or frameshift drive in Elite Dangerous, for the uninitiated, is basically the hyperdrive of Elite Dangerous. It's what allows you to make basically instantaneous jumps to the next star system in line, and that there is no real speed boost except for the fact that you get jump range boosts. For example, my Federal Corvette had, at this point, a maximum jump range of about 20 to 22 kilometers, and any sort of cargo or anything drops that down. Your overall jump range is dependent upon the mass of your ship to a fair degree. And again, the Corvette is not exactly a small ship, and it's actually got one of the larger frameshift drives in the game to be able to get it to do really much of anything. It's not the largest, and it's certainly not the best, but it is... It really... To a certain degree, it really needs help. And one of the nice things about the Guardian FSD boosters is they are a flat range increase to your FSD without... And the only real thing that it does is increase your power draw. It doesn't increase your fuel consumption really at all. So that is one thing that I very, very much wanted to have on my Corvette, because that pushes my Corvette up to a maximum range of 28 light years for a single jump, and that is very respectable. And that is if I use a top-rated grade or level 5, size 5 module Guardian FSD booster with a 10.5 light year range boost. Of course, I could always opt for a class 3, which is still like a 7 light year bonus, and I believe a class 4 is a 9 light year bonus. But you know what? I mean, my Corvette is primarily outfitted for combat. I really don't tend to haul cargo in it too much. So having a class 5 on there really doesn't hurt me too terribly much as far as I'm concerned. I should also probably mention that I'm also doing this to increase my jump range after the frameshift drive of my Corvette has already been engineered and basically upgraded as much as it possibly can be to get the best jump range from the FSD without additional modules. So, yeah, there you have it. 28 light years in a Corvette is certainly nothing to sneeze at. It's definitely not the best, and other ships equipped with a Guardian FSD booster are going to get substantially better range even than that. But, you know what? I love my Corvette. It's very capable in combat, and I want to be able to get a little bit better jump range out of it to really not put too fine a point on it. And it doesn't cost, again, having that booster side from just additional power consumption really does not hurt me too much as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, skipping ahead just a little bit now, I finally get around to the actual point of why I'm here, which is getting a Guardian module blueprint fragment, which involves activating 6 pylons that are around the Guardian facility, and then coming back and scanning a orb that is going to pop out of the central device in front of me, and scanning that will give me the blueprint fragment that I am here for. And of course, activating this thing, among other things, also pops out more sentinels, and I also need to, because unfortunately I wasn't exactly paying attention to the layout or anything, I still need to actually find the 4 remaining pylons to power them up. And powering them up is easy enough. I just need to find them and shoot at them at a particular point with my laser, and they'll charge right on up. But again, finding them is half the battle, if you haven't even remembered anything of the overall layout of the facility. So yeah, and it's gonna take me a lot longer than I really meant to actually do this. Now, the nice thing is that once you do start activating the pylons, they do actually give you a reasonable amount of time. In fact, I'm almost tempted to say a very generous amount of time to actually be able to find the extra pylons and get them taken care of. I mean, if it takes me 7 minutes to find any of these pylons, I'm really not doing too good. The site is long enough, you can traverse the entire length of the site in less than a minute. And it's just not really that difficult to find them if you know where you're looking for. In fact, if you had been smarter than I am going into this site and actually make note of the layout and where things are, you can jump straight from one to the next without really any issue. The other nice thing is, if at this point, like I hadn't quite yet figured out, you also realize that the Guardian sites are symmetrical. All you really have to do is figure out where you are on one side and go charging off to the exact opposite end, and you'll basically find the next one in line. But, well, again, I hadn't quite yet figured that out at this point. Now, the third site that I actually went after, I did a lot better, I suppose. But by then I had also figured out that the sites were, in fact, symmetrical. But the third site that I went after was also a little bit more problematic because I could not, for the life of me, find a landing site for my Corvette that was anywhere closer than 1.5 kilometers. And it was at the bottom of a very steep incline beneath the facility. So I went into my third Sentinel or Guardian site basically without any additional support from my ship. So the simple fact that I actually pulled that one off, I attribute to the fact that, one, I had already gotten used to dealing with the Sentinels to a certain degree, and also because I had actually made the observation by that point that the Sentinels were basically easy to deal with. All I had to do was make sure my shields were recharged well enough to not deplete, and really just kind of make sure I was in a position where I was kind of covered and really not easily accessible to the missiles that they launch. Or, even better yet, just take them down, if possible, before they even launch missiles at all. So, yeah, anyway. The trickier part was actually handling multiple Guardian Sentinels than actually dealing with individuals. Individuals are easy as hell, but when you've got 4 of them trying to shoot at you at once, then it gets a little bit tricky. And the only time you really get 4 of them actually shooting at you at any one given time is after you actually engage the or start getting up into the activation area, the main console of the area, and also after you actually activate it and scan the orb and get your blueprint. Because then you've got to get out. And of course they can't exactly make it too easy for you. But, I mean, it is what it is, and it is very, very possible to do. In reality, the Sentinels are actually very, very easy to deal with under the right circumstances. Again, you just have to be careful, you have to be willing to take your time, and just not panic like Jingles did. And again, the only reason Jingles failed was because, 1, he panicked and started trying to really get back in cover of his ship, or get back to his ship overall, instead of trying to do anything to actually shoot at them with his SRV, and he also wasn't exactly balancing his power to enhance the survivability of his SRV. So, yeah, that was something that he figured out, fortunately, very quickly, but unfortunately he did not figure it out in time to actually save his SRV, which was in his Asp Explorer, and he only had 1. So, yeah, it really did not work out very well in his favor, on top of the fact that he also left himself a sitting duck for the missiles of the Guardian Sentinels, which basically just kind of bounces SRV around like a perverted pinball. And of course, I wasn't exactly doing too terribly great at a couple of points myself, trying to get some of these dropped engineering materials, because in some cases you can actually get stuck on them, and that is really what caused my problem just there a few seconds ago. Anyway, I go through all of this, I get the Sentinels shot down, get my engineering materials collected, and I then quickly come around to the overall point of why I was here again, which is to get my module blueprint fragment. Now, as far as the FSD booster, I only really need 1, and I have to be at a site that is specifically unlocked by a Guardian relic. If you are at a site that is unlocked with a special access key or anything like that, well, let's just say you're at the wrong place. It's going to give you a completely different fragment, or blueprint fragment, or even just blueprint from what you actually need, and basically it does nothing for you under those circumstances. So, if you're after other things, like say some of the Guardian fighters that you can unlock, or maybe Guardian weapons modules, you're in the right place. But you need to be at a very specific site, again, that gives you the relic unlock of the main facility in order to actually get your module blueprint. And that was one of the other things that I did a little bit of research on before I went into this, so that I didn't end up going to the wrong sites and basically going through a lot of everything for essentially nothing. Because again, the only thing I'm interested in for the Guardians at this point so far is just the FSD booster. I'm not interested in any of the fighter modules, I'm not interested in any of the weapons modules, because I'm not going after Thargoids, which are the other alien race that you can potentially encounter in-game, and I'm just... all I wanted was a little bit of extra jump range for my Corvette, damn it. And I sure as hell did not want to waste too much time getting it. Besides the fact that I decided to make these 500 plus light years worth of jumping in my Corvette, which did not have a booster at this point, so I was only really making jumps at a rate about 20 to 19 light years at an attempt. So yeah, that was a pretty extensive trip. The nice thing is I do always keep my Corvette equipped with a fuel scoop, though I did decide to upgrade it for this whole trip to a Class 7 fuel scoop, which, you know what, that thing really fills up the fuel tank damn fast. But anyway, that's beside the point. I'm probably going to get back to the bubble, pop in a smaller fuel scoop, get back to modules that I actually use on a more regular basis, and just enjoy the extended jump range. And of course, as always, there are occasional little snafus in trying to actually get my SRV back under the ship and properly into the docking bay, but you know what? That's par for the course. As long as I get there in the long run, I'm in pretty good shape. And in conclusion, I finally get a hold of my blueprint, I get all of the fragments and everything that I find lying around, and I am safe to get out of Dodge and basically kind of move on with my life. Get back to the bubble, get my overall, just get my module unlocked, and then proceed to go back to mining in my cutter. But I was simply inspired to do this because of Jingles' video, and that was really about it. On that note, coming up to the end of the video here as I do one quick final flyby of the site. And so, on that note, I will let everybody go. I hope you all have an enjoyable evening, and take care. I'll catch you next time, folks. Happy hunting!